you've probably all been following along, making fun, Eternium, and John has some major news to share with you. He's got some new gameplay footage, kind of a big reveal, and he's going to talk to you about the process they're going through, what to expect soon, and how you might want to get involved in the future. How's it going today, John?
Pretty good. Now that we're, well, assuming you can hear me right now, then I guess it's going pretty good. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you fine. I think people are hearing when I talk, it's coming through your speaker.
Yes.
If you had some recorded headphones, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to let you do most of the talking.
Yeah, I do not have, you sound fine on my end. My headphones seem to just mess up all the audio on my system if I try and use them right now. Something's confused.
Maybe turn the volume down just a little bit so it's going through your speakers into your microphone, and that might help a lot.
How's that?
Well, we'll see how it goes. Go ahead, take it away, John.
All right, cool. Better. Well, welcome everyone. So what you're seeing here behind our talking heads is some footage of Project Artemis. Adrian and folks over at Dream Primer released some video on our Eternium forums, so some of you may have seen some of this. This is the long version, so we're just going to kind of let it play in the background, and you can see what's going on there if you gives you something better to look at than the two of us. So as we go through the presentation and the conversation, we will we'll just keep this video rolling, and then I've got some other video to show you of another game at the end. So I was thinking I might throw up a presentation just to talk for a second. Let me see if I can pause the Artemis video here, and we will come back to it. And just for a second, I'm going to give you a bit of an update, and really just these are the topics we'll be talking about today. I'll give you a little bit of a description about making fun. We'll talk about crowdfunding, kind of put it in the context of what we're doing over on WeFunder. I want to catch you up on the history of Eternium, so where, how we kind of got here, and then where we're going with Eternium, and then talk about the two new titles, Project Artemis and the new Unity title we've been developing, and then open it up to some Q&A. So how's that sound, everyone? So here we'll go back here and let the footage play again. And oops, we'll put it was somewhere around there. Unfortunately, the audio is not able to come through here as well as, well, at all. Lots of audio challenges today, but you can kind of see it, and at least it won't be competing with our voices while we're talking. So let's start with, I want to just talk a little bit about the history of making fun. So making fun, we're a developer and a publisher. And so what does that mean? Developers create games, the art, the design, the technology, the coding. And a publisher does the financial aspects of it. Well, first it pays for the game and then markets and distributes the game. So in the case of a game like Eternium, that means making fun. We have the relationship with the app stores, and we when we don't do a whole lot of advertising, but the advertising that we do, that's done here at Making Fun. We also handle the community management. So those of you who have talked to Travis on the forums or otherwise, he's one of our employees. And so in the case of Eternium, historically, Making Fun was the publisher, and Dream Primer in Bucharest, Romania, are the developers. So they created the game. We had a little bit of additional technology work we did on Eternium, Pablo and Diego, and managing all the servers and the back-end code for some of the data storage and that sort of thing. So it's very much a collaborative effort, but you can kind of think of it as Dream Primer thought up the game and created the game, and Making Fun, we help operate it and distribute it. And then that's kind of changed more recently, so we'll talk about that. So we have a number of teams, right? So we do a bunch of games, and a lot of times people are asking questions about, how are we doing, how are we shifting our focus, and why aren't there more features or content coming out in Eternium? And I'll get into that a little bit. I think it's kind of an important point to understand the history and where we came from, to appreciate where we are and what we're doing going forward, and to understand why maybe what we're saying today about where we're going has evolved, and is that good or bad, or can you trust it, or what have you. So you can make up your own mind, but we'll give you the background. So at Making Fun, we've got a couple of different teams. When I talk about my internal team, I'm talking about the people we have around the world. So we're not internal in an office. We've been distributed for quite a long time. So myself, I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area, along with Alyssa, who's the president of the company, and my wife, and then Josh Quick, who is the head of design and essentially our head of games. He's the guy who's most experienced with playing games, certainly, and designing games, and that's his main job. And so Josh has been working on Eternium more recently, but loves these kind of games and is really excited to take a bigger role going forward. And then we have a couple of in our internal team, we have people, like I said, in the U.S. and the Bay Area. Travis is up north, about 4 hours north of us. And we get together occasionally. Josh comes over, usually on Tuesdays. We get together, have lunch, and we work and we brainstorm and that sort of thing. And then we have also, as part of our internal team, people that are in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Montevideo, Uruguay. Okay, and then so our external teams include today. In the past, we worked with a lot of different external teams. We were a much bigger company at one time when we were actually part of News Corp for a couple of brief years. We were acquired, and then we scaled up, and then News Corp ended up making a lot of changes, and we had the opportunity to buy the company back. So today, Making Fun is a startup. We're wholly owned by the employees, myself and the employees, and then we have a couple of investors, including many of you who have joined us recently on the WeFunder campaign. So today, very much like a startup, but an interesting history. And so the two teams that we're still working with that are external teams, of course, Dream Primer, who you all know, created Eternium. And we've been working with those guys for a long time. And I had the great pleasure of going and visiting them in their home country in Romania, a beautiful country. I think of it like I compare people, what's Transylvania like? We went through Transylvania on a bit of a vacation. It's kind of like Lake Tahoe, except 1,000 years older. So there's some really cool stuff there. We went to Castle Bran and found out where the fictional Dracula supposedly came from, and it's pretty cool. So that's one external team we work with, and then also a company called Kef Sensei in Uruguay, who helped us create Hidden Express and continues to this day to help us develop Hidden Express. So let's see. So that's kind of Making Fun, and if you guys have any questions about Making Fun, I'd be happy to answer that. I'm trying to keep an eye on the Twitch chat so I can answer anything that pops up. And maybe, someone in the Making Fun team can also, I'll try and keep an eye on our Slack channel. So if somebody wants to DM me there, I can also, you can point things out that I should be paying attention to that way as well. And maybe I'll stop here. And Travis, do you want to pipe in at all for any of this, or I can also mute myself if you want. So
yeah, John. So well, the problem is when I talk, it comes through your goes through your speakers and into your microphone, and it's making people a little crazy.
Maybe if I can stop.
So maybe turn the speakers down just a little bit more if you can. But
how's that?
Everybody hearing me all right now? So yeah, that sounds better. So, John, you're walking through the teams. You want to talk a little bit about the gameplay, some of the enhancements, and what the future of the game might look like, kind of show off. I think a lot of people are excited to hear some of the enhancements there, what to expect, the journey of the game itself, and kind of where it's heading.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think, well, let me take a quick moment to just give the history on Eternium, and then we'll get right into that, because I think that's the fun part. So we mentioned that Dream Primer created Eternium, and that was going really well for quite a long time. We chose the technology the game was built on, which was called Marmalade. It was a thin layer on top of OpenGL, C++ code that allowed us to create a very, very high performance game. And so 10 years ago, when we were developing Eternium, it was the best technology for making the most high performance game possible on mobile phones and desktops. So it had this cross-platform capability. A lot of like what it sounds like a modern game engine like Unity or Unreal Engine would be today, except those are massive, massive full-featured products compared to what Marmalade was, which was a very thin layer that kind of let you do whatever you wanted, but you had to do it yourself. So for example, one of the things that was very difficult in Marmalade is anything involving user interface. It kind of had to be built from very primitive controls, whereas in Unity, you could just create an art asset, drag and drop it in, and you've got a user interface. So things like that are just a little bit harder. And then it got an order of magnitude more complex when the company behind that technology went out of business. And so then the Dream Primer team, in Making Fun, but mostly this was on Dream Primer, they had to maintain the game engine as well as the game. And that's okay on Windows because things don't change as much and nobody really tells you what you have to do on Windows. But on mobile, Apple and Google like to change things up kind of constantly. And so today they're both into this pattern where you pretty much only have 2 years where you could be guaranteed that your stuff's going to work. And so almost anything you're interacting with the mobile phone is going to have to be updated at least every couple of years. And, and there's lots of things. So that's kind of like a constant need to update different code and recompile the game and make sure it's still working. And every now and then, usually that's not so bad. You just recompile and against the new library, maybe you find that something changed a little bit, but sometimes it's a massive, massive change. And so that's really what kind of was the gotcha for us. And what made us realize that as awesome as Eternium is, that technology wasn't going to be the long-term solution, the forever solution, right? You think of a game like World of Warcraft, it's going on 20 years old. RuneScape just celebrated 20 years old. And these games can just live kind of forever with their live services. You keep adding content, people want to keep playing the game. And that was our vision for Eternium. And so we essentially abandoned that vision for a while and moved to a place where we were just making the next game. And we said, okay, well, we'll finish Eternium kind of in the next game maybe. And then that also seemed like not the right decision. So that's kind of what we're here to talk about today is, what are we doing now? So we had a lot of success with Eternium, 37 million downloads. The game's one of the best rated apps on any of the app stores. So a lot of success there. But then we stopped making new features and content and people, a lot of people stopped playing. Now, there are some people who are still playing all the time, and they're playing in all the events, and that's amazing. I mean, we are so appreciative of the fact that some people stuck around, and they stuck around because it's really a phenomenally fun experience. And so, competing in the A New Beginning events and getting on the leaderboards, it's a skilled competition, and that's something I think that part of the recipe for Eternium's success is a lot of mobile free-to-play games. You have to spend money to be competitive, and a lot of money. With Eternium, we tried to really, really be extraordinarily generous and player-friendly with the game. So yes, we still have opportunities to spend money, and yes, you have certain advantages. Namely, you don't have to grind as much. You can actually play the game less, essentially, right? But we wanted to carefully balance that, so even somebody who never spent money could spend some kind of reasonable amount of time, grinding, farming gems, farming gold, and still be able to enter the competitions and compete at the same level as somebody who spent a lot of money. And that's really important to us at Making Fun and at Dream Primer. We believe in fair competition, and of course, we need to make money to survive as companies. People need to get paid. Employees aren't going to work for free. But we want to balance that, and we're honestly kind of disgusted at some of what other games do. The amount of money and kind of the way they're not really games first so much as contraptions that get people to spend money first with, kind of games painted on top of them. And so that's something that with all of our games at Making Fun and when we think about Project Artemis with Dream Primer, we're really considering that. Yes, we need to make money, but we really want to respect the players. I would say, the way I think about it is I don't like to play a game where I spend $5 or $10 only to realize, I need to spend, $100. And then you spend more money only to realize you need to spend yet more money. So we're really trying to avoid that and making sure that competition is fair. Okay, so that's kind of our philosophy on things, a little bit of history on Eternium. So let's talk about the future. So, okay, something went wrong. The Marmalade folks stopped making their game engine. We took it over. We stopped making new features in Eternium. We realized that was probably a mistake. Okay, we decided we were going to make a new Eternium game in Unity, right? So we started Dream Primer started the new project in Unreal Engine 5, and that was always meant to be our next generation, big, ambitious, open world. And we'll talk a bit more about Project Artemis in a minute. But okay, so what about Eternium, right? We had this game, it's not really finished. You haven't faced Ragadam yet. There's been 4 acts and a 5-act play. Okay, we need to finish that. So initially we were planning to port Eternium, literally take it and make as close of a game in Unity as possible. And we actually did that, right? We actually wrote a lot of code to translate the assets literally from the Marmalade development environment into the Unity development environment as sort of one-to-one as possible. And it was pretty good. It was looking like, okay, yeah, we could probably do this, but it's not going to be the same. And we realized that there was kind of this 80-20 rule of getting 80% of it in was fairly easy, but then that last 20% was going to take a lot longer. So then we were faced with the decision, do we continue to develop that project, the port, and then after a year and a half, 2 years, end up with nothing new for players? We said, that's not going to be good for players. It's not going to be good for making fun. It's not going to result in a healthy game, right? It's going to take too long. So we said, okay. Then we started talking about the new Eternium game. And so what was that? That was actually going to be, well, let's Eternium is what it is, but let's make a new Eternium that's still as close to Eternium as possible, but it would be a new game. So it wouldn't be the exact game. It would be something highly similar. And then we started going on that trajectory. And I'm actually going to share some video with you later of what we produced, because we had a lot of success with that. And then still, as our next kind of, to be honest, it was when the Unity company abruptly changed their business model. We started really seriously thinking about, is Unity the platform for us now? They released this crazy aggressive pricing that it set the game industry on fire. People were irate, very loud. And still to this day, even though they unwound most of it, had they just come out with essentially what they're doing now, people would have been maybe a little bit upset. Had they done that with a good, healthy process of engaging with the development community, maybe it would have been okay. However, the way they did it was actually unfathomably idiotic. I mean, a lot of people need to be fired. And probably the only way the global game development community ever really gets behind Unity again is if the entire C-suite of that company gets fired, because it's just not cool what they did. Okay, so that got us thinking. Now again, they rewound a lot of that. So Unity is actually fine for us now. It's not as good as it once was, right? Before, by the way, what am I talking about? Before, we paid a healthy amount of money per month per seat for someone using Unity, and that was it. It was a tool. And then Unreal Engine, on the other hand, had a completely opposite business model. We pay nothing. We actually get source code for Unreal, which is fantastic. And then we pay a percent of our revenue from the live game. So, okay, both of those models have their advantages and disadvantages, and both were reasonable because you knew going in when you selected the technology what the deal was. And then Unity abruptly changed it and said, on top of paying us per month, you're also going to pay us a large amount of your revenue on a per install basis. And it destroyed the economics for a lot of studios. They would have literally gone out of business. They would have been paying Unity more money than their game made. And so it was just horrible. Okay, so that got us thinking. Why are we making Eternium essentially, the same kind of game in Unity? It's pretty cool. It looks good. Also, let's go look over here at Project Artemis, which has now been in development for a couple of years, and it's looking really, really good. And it's a bigger scope of a game, and it really is, in many ways, just the spiritual successor to Eternium. Exactly what that means. We'll be talking more about that in the future. But you certainly can think of it as it's the next thing, right? So rather than create another next thing, so we have our live game, which people love and are still playing, and then we were going to have a next Eternium in Unity, and then a next thing, this Unreal thing that's multiplayer, etc. We decided that didn't make a lot of sense. And so we said, for now at least, let's take the game that was going to be the next Unity project, the next Eternium project, and put that just on the shelf. I'm going to show it to you. It's fantastic, but it's not the thing we're currently focused on shipping. And so I'll talk later about what it is we're going to ship, because there's some cool stuff going on there. So let's get back to a little more detail, though. So with Eternium, I mentioned that there's a lot of things we just have to do to keep the game up to date. Just because, it wouldn't be fun if we didn't have something come out of left field. We got an email a month or so ago saying our content delivery network, Highwinds, CDN, was acquired and going to be shut down. So the way you get a lot of the assets of Eternium, you download the game, and then you download more stuff after you've downloaded the game from Google or Apple. All of that comes from a content delivery network. Well, we've got to now change to a different one, and we're not. That's just an involved process. So yay, and then some more Google updates, and then we're going to be getting out at the end of this month. It's a small change because it's not dramatically different in terms of a feature, but it's kind of the first real new kind of gameplay competition feature. Is we're making a platinum version of A New Beginning. So as many of you know, the bronze version you get 12 hours of gameplay over a 10 or so day period. And then with silver and gold, you get progressively less time. With platinum, you'll get 3 hours of gameplay. And so that means you can spend as long as you want futzing around with your character and making, building, trying different builds. But in terms of actual gameplay to level up your character and get as far as you can in the game, you get 3 hours in platinum. And so this is going to be the most intense kind of competition, and it will have some of the same rewards, some new rewards. And this is, keep in mind, this is our first release. This is the first version of Platinum. It's the first thing, we're really releasing that changes the game from our internal team who have taken over the development of Eternium, which is allowing Dream Primer to continue creating Artemis, which you're looking at here. It's not the last thing. So I ask your patience. Some people, the reason we chose Platinum is because many, many users who are playing the game, many players who have been dedicated for years, asked for it. And we said, okay, that's something we can do. We're excited to do it. But we look at it as just the first step. There's a bunch of other things we want to do to improve the way seasons work. It's always been kind of a little bit weird that, you have a season, not a lot changes about the game from season to season, but you create these new characters in events, and then you have your permanent heroes, but there's nothing that really changes on a seasonal basis. So we're talking about different ways we can have, maybe events you're creating new heroes like you do today, and then there's a reason to have those heroes on a seasonal basis. And then there's maybe certain events that you need a veteran hero to compete with that is, kind of on a different kind of event than just A New Beginning, right? Because if the New Beginning is always a new hero, okay, well, what do you do with the old heroes? We want to give you more to do with the old heroes, I guess is a way of saying it. And we want things to change on a seasonal basis. So look for a lot of more innovations around that. And of course, join the forums, join the conversation on Discord, and let us know what you think. Okay, so let's see. And then we have some bigger projects. So this is all just kind of table stakes, just kind of getting some of the tweaks, whether it's technological or with the events. What we really want to do, of course, is finish Act 5. So you want to face Ragadam. That's going to happen. So telling you right now, rather than doing it in the ported game or the new game, we're doing it in the live game. We are going to finish the story, and we're going to have some other new kinds of gameplay systems that we think you'll like. So different kind of game loops aside from the New Beginning, War Supplies, and just the normal game. Okay, and so I guess at the risk of talking about something that's going to change because it's still more in the concept stage, one thing we're kicking around is a new gameplay loop where heroes are capped at a certain level. So one thing we're hearing from people is the champion levels are great, but somebody that's got a much higher level than another, and really the difference is not that great. If you have a 1800 versus an 850, it's not that different, but we're thinking of capping at 850 to make the competition just that much more fair. And then fighting in dungeons that are really difficult, so that it really, again, gives people something to do with their veteran heroes, not just start a new hero and see how far you can get to compete, but okay, now you've got a veteran hero, what can you do with it? And so then the Ragadam battle. And we've got a bunch of things we're talking about with who Ragadam is and what happens there, and we're not going to reveal that today. We're not going to reveal it at all. You're going to have to play Act 5. So we'll get that out. So let's talk about Project Artemis. Travis, by the way, if you want to, I know we're having audio problems, but if you want to type me anything in chat, do that in the Zoom chat, and I can address your questions maybe that way too.
Yeah, John, your other Travis had said that he sent you a message on Slack you might want to check out, by the way.
Okay.
Currently have about 75 viewers at the moment, so things are going pretty well. Got a couple questions throughout the stream, and I know you also want to talk about some of the stuff that's going on with WeFunder.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. So what Travis Humphrey was saying, the other Travis, is that we had been trying to set up a website for doing the rewards. We want to give away some gems during this talk. I said part of the incentive for getting here. So what you're going to need to do is using the email that is your Eternium login email. Send an email to twitchgems@makingfun.com, and Travis will manually give you the gems as a reward. So we're going to do this for at least the first 25 people who email. And let me see, how do I type in here? Travis just put it into the chat. So Travis number 1, I guess, yeah. Travis H gets to be Travis number 1 because he's been around for a long, long, long time. Yeah, so one of the things that Tin Man mentioned, seasons should have your trial level progress reset. That's absolutely one of the things we'd like to do. And, the challenge there is, but then if you're using your main hero and you've got to redo all the trials, it's still, okay, so you have to only make 4 or 5 gameplay, levels before, because you advance pretty quickly. You take a high level character, you play trial level 1, then you're going to play like trial level 5 or 8 or something later, depending on how you do. So we want to make it not only do you have to just play 1 trial, but there's a reason to maybe progress all the way through. And then when you have a veteran hero, it's kind of just something else. Why use the same old trials for your season progress when you still only have to play a handful of times? We want to make it fun to start a new hero. We also want to make it fun to take your veteran heroes and play with them in different scenarios, and maybe even different combinations, different builds of the same kind of character type, but also playing with different characters and having there be incentive to do that. Where was I going to head over and talk about Project Artemis now? And then you wanted me to talk about the WeFunder as well, so certainly do that. I'll talk just a little bit more about Artemis. So I guess the key thing to focus in on is what's new with Artemis. So we've talked a lot about Eternium and what we were going to do and what we are doing with Eternium. A lot of that was influenced by what Project Artemis is, because there's no reason to do something that's sort of very similar, but like kind of not as good, right? I mean, if our target is to be like Artemis, but not quite as good, then that's kind of not really a good goal to have. And that's a lot of why we decided to go in a different direction with our next game, again, which I'll talk about in a bit. And so with Project Artemis, it's a open world that you can wander around. And when you wander around this world, you're going to see other people. You're going to chat with people. You can make friends with people. You can form parties with them, and you can go raid dungeons together. Do you have to play multiplayer? So one of the big questions we get on the forums is, aside from wanting gesture input controls, is, hey, I like Eternium because it's single player. Yes, that's one of the nice things about Eternium. Personally, I rarely play a multiplayer game until I've kind of, I don't know about mastered it, but until I've gotten really comfortable in single player. Personally, for me, that was all about StarCraft. I played a lot of single player StarCraft, and I played a lot of multiplayer StarCraft. In fact, before I was married and I was working at Sega a long time ago, we used to try and have a poker game, and we'd have guys come over and play poker. We had a pretty big flat in San Francisco, and we'd try and get 6 or 8 people over. And over time, fewer and fewer people were coming on poker night. But we played StarCraft on the alternate weeks, and we always got 8 people for StarCraft. So we just decided to stop playing poker and play StarCraft. And we had the best setup, 4v4, 4 people on one floor. We rented the basement from our landlord for like, an extra $500 a month. And we had a massive computer lab essentially down there. So we had these 4v4 StarCraft, and that is so much fun. And so that is what's in my mind when I think about multiplayer gaming. It's not necessarily about just jumping on a server and playing with people you don't know just to have other people there. In many ways, a single player game is better for fun in that ways. But when you know the people and when you can play together, and whether those relationships were formed in real life and you're coming over to someone's house to play, or whether those relationships are formed in a game world, I'll tell you, we've got a very strong community with Eternium. Our players interact a lot. We've got elder players who help new players on the forums and in Discord. We've got elder players who like to share their builds and their progress in the events, and that's really, really cool. And now we look at Artemis as being able to take that to the next level and let you guys go into dungeons together and share the loot and share the glory. And if that's not your thing, that's fine. You can still just go play single player. And what you're seeing in this video that's been looping behind us here is that it's just single player gameplay. But you can imagine, like, the difference is this is actually single player gameplay on a live server. So you're online, somebody else could be dropping in and playing right next to you. Now, when you're in the normal world and running around like this character is now, and you face an enemy and you see when you see the loot, that's your loot. Somebody else will see maybe the same loot or different loot and get theirs. And so everything's multiplied when you have multiple players, right? When you go into a dungeon and you're within a 5-person party, you'll get more loot, you'll have harder enemies. But the difference is in the open world, in kind of the quests and story, you're going to be, you can play solo, no problem, but you're definitely going to be better off partying up for dungeons. So that's the main difference. I'd say, we also had to create a lot of technology, and by we in this case, I mean Dream Primer. So where with Eternium, we did a lot of the back end stuff, development. With Artemis, it's really the guys over in Bucharest doing the entire game. So Making Fun is very much more like a classic publisher where we're doing, the financing of the game and then the distribution. So all of the development for this game is happening in Bucharest, and they've done some amazing things. And at some point, Adrian will probably get online and talk. He really likes to spend his time working on the game. So it's harder to get him to come over and talk. But he's a perfectionist about the game, and I think you all appreciate that. And so they've done some really cool things with making it so as you wander around the world like this character's doing, you have this seamless experience. And it's a big world and it's a beautiful world. But you actually go from server to server technically. So you could imagine that in the hometown area, there's a lot of people, and we might have a lot of different servers just for that one area. Whereas you get out into fringe parts of the world and you might have multiple areas on one server. And so keeping all of that seamless and online is no small feat. Unreal Engine gives us a lot of the multiplayer capabilities, but that's not one of the features of Unreal. You think about Fortnite, and that's a lot of people in a smaller area that gets even smaller. Whereas with Artemis, it's a big area that's going to get a lot bigger. So, let's see. I'm just going to look over to the chat and see if anyone's asking any questions about this stuff. And again, I'd say if anyone on my team sees something and wants to DM me over on Slack, I can make sure I address any of the specific questions. So let's talk about WeFunder. I mentioned that with Artemis, Making Fun is kind of more of a classic publisher, and so the most important thing, honestly, that a publisher does for a game developer is pay for the game development, and so that's what Making Fun is doing. And the WeFunder campaign is all about, it's about providing financing. Sure, it's a fundraising event, but what we're excited about is that there's been and it's kind of very common in video games. There's a we they, and with bigger companies, the we of the developer and publisher, there's almost like this massive wall around them, and the players don't really get to get inside and see any of that. And with Making Fun and Dream Primer, we've tried to really break those walls down and invite people in. And with WeFunder, we're really excited because we see that as taking it to the next level, is to actually let our players, our community, become owners in Making Fun, and literally not only at the same place in line as myself and the employees, but actually in front of us in line. So how do you get your money back? It's not a donation. It's not a crowdfunding, like a Kickstarter crowdfunding. You're actually buying stock in the company. but you're not buying normal stock. Like I have normal stock. I own a lot of the normal stock in the company, and Josh and Travis and Pablo and the entire team, they have normal shares of stock. What you're getting with WeFunder is essentially preferred shares. So it's a simple agreement for future equity. It'll translate, but it translates into preferred shares. And so what is a preferred share? A preferred share means you get at least your money back before anybody else gets anything. And so if you put in $100 or $1,000 or $10,000, you're going to get that money back at the very least. But you have the option of converting to common stock and getting your percentage of your ownership of the overall. So, and when does that occur? That occurs at one of two times. If the company is sold, then it just kind of converts instantly based on your percent ownership. What's your percent ownership? It's the better of your percent over 10 million or the actual price that we're sold for. Let's say the company was sold for 5 million, which would be a bad outcome. You would at least get your 1x back, but you could get more than that if the company is sold, say, for 12 million. You would convert to common. So it's pretty complicated, but I guess the simplest way to describe it is that it's exactly that. You get the better of your money back or the percent of the company, and you get your money back before anybody at the company gets anything. So it's hard to imagine a better structure, I think. And so and this is just the standard way most companies that raise on WeFunder work. It uses a contract form that was created by Y Combinator, which is a famous accelerator in Silicon Valley. It's literally the form they use to invest in companies. And so it's become very popular on a global basis now as the way to invest in earlier stage companies. And so I said you could get your money back
John,
with
you
a
have some really
return
cool perks
when the
too. You
company
might
is
want to share
sold
those.
or goes public, and you would actually get your SAFE agreement converted into stock at the next financing event that happened with sort of a more institutional investor like a venture capitalist. If they come in and set a price round, let's say they invest a couple $1 million at a $20 million valuation, well, great, you get stock shares, and your stock shares are now worth twice what you paid for them, in a not very liquid market, again, until we sell. So I think that's the big difference between making an investment and making fun versus, a public company like Activision or Electronic Arts is you can buy those stocks in the morning and sell them in the afternoon. With making fun, you invest in WeFunder, and then you're waiting a longer time for a return. But rather than hoping for maybe a 10 or 20% a year appreciation on your Electronic Arts stock, some years it goes up, some years it goes down. With making fun, essentially nothing happens for a long time, and then we sell the company and you make a 10x or a 20x or a 30x return. And so that is really what we're hoping for. And it's all based on the premise that this is a game changer. What you're seeing here with these new games, when you look backwards of the success we had with Eternium, yes, 37 million downloads, that's great. It only got so big, but now we've got that as a base to kind of launch from into the world. And so as a kind of startup company making a game like Project Artemis and our other title, most companies doing that don't have a brand like Eternium and a player base like we have with Eternium to market the title to and to get you excited to come in and try the new game. Because if you have to pay Apple and Google and Facebook for ads to market your game, that's a large percentage of your revenue, and generally speaking, it's more than 100% of your revenue. So it's not a great business. So we have a real advantage by having this built-in player base, and it's why it's so important for us to take care of you guys and make sure that we're continuing to roll out features and keep the Eternium ecosystem healthy even while we're building new games. And so I'd say just the one last thing on Eternium is when you think in these new products, when you think about, okay, so what are you doing making fun? Like, let's just step back. You're making these new games, you've got this existing game. Yes. We think Eternium is a phenomenal game, and it can actually last for many, many more years. It'll only last if we continue to develop content. So we're doing that. We started doing that about at the beginning of the year, end of last year. We started really taking over from Dream Primer, learning the code, starting to make small, tiny releases. And then now the releases are becoming more and more ambitious. So Eternium will have a lifetime. It'll have a continued lifetime. And then Project Artemis is going to, we're going to actually get into the closed alpha very soon. So we've got, at last count, over 13,000 people signed up for the closed alpha. And so we're going to be excited to get feedback. What do you think? What kind of what do you love about the game? What do you think still needs to be improved? That sort of thing. And then the game will launch next year. Eternium took a long time to build up. I won't get into like how long, because I think we've been going on for a while here, but Eternium, it took us a long time to continuously improve the game. It was sort of strange in that respect that we actually continuously improved the game and built its success. A lot of games, don't have that opportunity, I guess. They either come out and they're strong enough, or else they kind of die. So with Eternium, we had enough of a success level that we could keep building it. So it could take time. And so we want you to keep playing Eternium and then start playing Project Artemis. And you might have times, and some people might prefer one, some people might prefer the other. And then the new title, and I'm going to shift into that in just a second, will be something that can also live in a very kind of collaborative way. We see that a lot of people will play at least 2, if not 3 of these games. And so that's our hope, is doing 3 highly differentiated games, or more differentiated than we maybe had been talking about in the past. And so for us, they're going to be very different experiences. Wow, I can keep going on this stuff. Amazing how time flies when you're talking about games you love. Okay, so I think I'm going to switch over now and give you, and I think I might lose you on this one, Travis, but I'm going to switch over and show you what we've been building in Unity. So I'm just going to hop over here. And this, let's start over here. So this is the new Eternium game. So you're the first people in the world to see this. It's from a build we just completed, and you can see it looks, there's a lot of similarities with Artemis. They're both action RPGs, right? This one's got some a little more exaggerated special effects. This is a new user interface. At one point we were creating this, if you can imagine what the Eternium UI looks like, this is what is our vision for how we would evolve. You can see that there's...
Might have to talk a little louder, John. A little loud.
Oh, can you hear is the game audio coming through on this one?
Yeah, it's coming through great.
Oh, wow, okay. I can't hear the audio on this one. That's really strange. I don't know what's different between how I integrated the audio here versus the audio Artemis. But what I will do is at some point pause this. When I pause this, I'll probably pause the audio as well. And maybe we can you can hear me. So with this game,
Somebody got excited about that.
That's funny. Yeah. So this here is the work of our team, our internal team, and so this is Matthias and Ismail programming, and it's Mauricio and Enzo and Rodrigo on the art team, and this is a new boss we created. So this is a boss that you may see in Eternium. You may see it in the new game. We're not sure yet, but there's some pretty cool stuff here that will be applicable to what we're doing. And so we're putting this on the shelf. I'm not saying we're not going to ship it. We really like a lot of, look, we love Eternium, and we would not like to see Eternium ever go away. And so to the point at which the live game, if it does become a problem to continue to add content after we do Act 5, right? We're committing to Act 5 in Eternium, then it may be that we shift over to this code base. And so there's a lot of cool things we can do. And the Eternium took a long time to develop what you see today. And the amount of progress we were able to make, initially starting by translating all the assets, but what you're seeing here has almost no assets from Eternium in it. Most things were either recreated or are just different, right? So we went through a long process, I would say, where initially we were literally, it was almost like the art team wasn't even involved at first. It was the programmers creating programs to take stuff literally out of Eternium and rebuild it into Unity. And then that kind of migrated to where we're like, okay, well, we would, that's actually going to be really hard. It would be easier just to recreate it. And look, the Unity has this great asset store that we can leverage for different systems, different technical systems. And those technical systems that you can buy in the Unity asset store, they come with source code. So you can modify them and make them your own. And then as that process continued, we realized that, wow, while some of those are cool, and if what you really wanted to do was kind of use a Lego block style game building, we could ship a game very quickly, but it's not the game we wanted to ship. And so we realized, yeah, a lot of those systems were better off just creating it from scratch. We're kind of a team that is much more sophisticated than your typical small indie team, but then also much smaller than, an Electronic Arts or a Blizzard. So, some of those teams could have 50 or 100 engineers, right, and hundreds of artists. And we're talking about handfuls of people of art and engineering talent. So, so we're plotting our own path, and what you're seeing here is really cool, and we want to continue. But we're also really excited to do something with this material that's a different style of game. And so I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm waiting for the first playable build of the game, which I think might be coming later today. So I'm excited to see that. But let's just say that it's going to be something that's very different from Eternium, but looks also strangely similar. Like, we're trying to capture what's the essence of Eternium, but in a more mobile-friendly form factor, at least at first. That could be something that could play much, much differently in a much different kind of game session than you would think of. Where, when you want to be more serious about the game, you might be playing Project Artemis or playing Eternium with a new beginning. But when you're, on the subway or commuting, somehow, or walking around on your mobile phone, we want there to be a game that you're bringing up very quickly and popping into. And so that's something we're playing with. All right. So let me just go, and I'm going to be quiet for a second and play the rest of this video. Okay, it's looping around. So so someone asked if we'll post the video. So we've already got the Artemis video posted. The one I looped for Artemis is a much longer version than what we posted, but I think the one we posted, Adrian crafted that video to really highlight. One thing I should mention about what you've seen, go back to the forums and look at Adrian's post and watch that video. And what you're going to notice is one of the key differences between Eternium and Artemis is the way the skills work. And so the abilities actually build on themselves, and the way you can create synergy and use your ability points to grow your abilities is I think just like a generational improvement over Eternium. It's just different. So that's something that you can actually see in the video, I think. Great. So I think with that, Travis, we want to wrap up soon. People have meetings and things to get to. So I want to make sure I don't forget to cover anything I was supposed to cover. So if you want to, if either of the Travises want to tell me what I should be talking about here.
Yeah, John. So, you covered some of the complexities of the WeFunder opportunity and crowdfunding, but I don't think you broke into some of the really cool perks that you were offering, and what it would mean to be investing in making fun and more from the connection side, more so than just the financial side.
Yeah,
let me have some really cool offerings, and
I'm pulling up our page on WeFunder actually as we speak, so I can talk to that. So the WeFunder site is sometimes, it's not the most user-friendly site in ways. It's good on desktop. It's harder on mobile to see some of these things. But the perks, what Travis is referring to, is when you invest, we actually give you some things back. And so at the $250 level, you're getting priority invitations. And so, for example, one question that came up, and including from Adrian, so what's this about $250? People can buy their way into the closed alpha? No, not yes and no. So the yes part of that is yes, you're going to get into the closed alpha if you invest at the 250 or higher level ahead of people maybe who don't, but you're not going to get in first. The first people into the closed alpha are going to be our veteran players. And so we want to be very clear about that. We're a very player-centric company. You can't buy your way into anything. You can't buy your way to victory on the leaderboards. You can't buy your way into the closed alpha by investing in the company. The first people in are going to be people, irrespective of investment, that are our veteran players. And we really want to hear what you say. But think of it as, kind of growing circles of people that are going to get in. And certainly being an investor is going to get you in long before the public. The public may not get into an alpha. Alphas aren't things that you want hundreds of thousands of people into, and we've already got 13,000 people signed up. So it's a balance. We want to make sure that you understand that it's an advantage, but you're not buying your way in. So then at the $500 level, we're going to give you exclusive cosmetic rewards that when in game, people will identify you as an investor, as a supporter of the projects, because really that's what it is, right? It's not like if you're an investor, it means like, we go out and buy new cars or something. In fact, and this is something that's not really relevant from a game community perspective, but certainly as an investor, for you to know, I'm barely getting paid right now, and that's going to continue until the company is profitable. So, this is all about the money that we raise going to the developers and artists and people producing these games. And so you're a supporter of that. You're going to get some cosmetic items that there's really no other way to get. It's not going to help you win an event, but it will help you look distinct as a supporter. At the $1,000 level, we're actually going to give you half the money back in in-game currency. And so that's kind of cool. I think that's really cool. So you'll get $100 back immediately in our live games and then in the new games that are coming. And then at the $5,000 level, it's really a way of getting closer with the management team, having a private Discord channel, and being able to, and again, our veteran players, whether you're an investor or not, we're listening to you. But this is a way for somebody who, especially I think of this and at the 10,000 level, working to create a creature, or at the higher level, an NPC. I think that's really exciting for someone, especially when you think about getting a kid or a younger sibling or someone interested in financial investing and being responsible kind of in kind of how they look at money. Is, you might spend your money on a product. That's being a consumer. You're consuming the product, you're getting a benefit. That money's gone, it disappears. The reason you invest is so that you have more to show for it tomorrow. And so the best way of getting somebody interested, or a good way of getting somebody interested, is to do it in a way that's relevant to that person. And so being able to play Eternium with a kid and say, we're an investor in that company, we own a piece of that company, that's pretty cool. And of course, you can do that with Electronic Arts and Activision, but those are public companies, and to be able to invest in a startup company with the potential for a much bigger outcome is pretty exciting. Well, I'm losing my voice here, so I may need to cut off soon. So so I think just in wrapping it up, again, why WeFunder? Why equity crowdfunding? We can and probably will go back to the venture capital community and raise a little bit more money. But what's exciting about this is getting so many of you involved. And in fact, one of the investments I made that I'm most excited about in the past is in a winery, Hall Winery. And so Hall is a winery up in Napa Valley, and they make amazing wine. And the reason I invested in this winery when the opportunity came up, because it's kind of a strange, it's like the best way to lose money. Like there's a joke, the best way to create a small fortune is to have a large fortune and open a winery. But this investment looked pretty good. And they made what I considered at the time the best value bottle of wine you could buy at Safeway. So you went into Safeway and you wanted to buy a nice bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon from the Napa Valley. One of the cheapest ones that was really good was the Hall Napa Cab. Unfortunately, now it's twice as expensive as it used to be, but it was that value, and I enjoyed as a consumer, and I wanted to become a part of that. And why did they do this? Why did they give us this, which was kind of a really good deal as an investor at the time? Why did they want to create this? It's kind of like the equivalent of a crowdfunding. And the reason they did it is they created brand ambassadors. I'm sitting here talking to you about Hall Winery, right? And maybe you'll go to your local supermarket and find a bottle of Hall Napa Cab. Again, it's twice the price now it used to be, but it's a good wine. And so we create this kind of army of people who love the product and now want to talk to other people about it. So what we're hoping is that by becoming an investor and making fun, you'll be telling your friends and family and people, what's that game you're playing on your phone? Oh, this is from Making Fun, and I'm actually an owner of this company. And that's pretty cool. So we hope that and what's really great about WeFunder is you can get in for as little as $100. And so, that's not nothing. I understand that's a lot of money, but when you think about it, you're not spending $100, you're investing $100. And so I think it's a much different kind of calculus to say, I'm hoping I'm going to get that back with interest someday, and not interest like 5%, interest like 5x or 10x. And so it's risky. Startup investing, it's not for everybody, and it's certainly you shouldn't put a large amount of your money into a startup. But 1% of your investment capital into startups, 2%. So whatever that means for you, whether it's $100 or $1,000 or whatever it is, that's what we're excited about with WeFunder and why we think it's such a good thing. And it's only been available in the last, I think, 6 or 8 years, where the United States Security and Exchange Commission created this new class of, it's called Reg CF, regulation crowdfunding, to enable this to happen for non-accredited investors. Previously, you had to be an accredited investor to invest in a startup. And that means you had to have like a liquid net worth of $1 million and make a certain amount per year. And it was just not accessible to most people. And so the idea was they wanted to create a situation where it was safe. And that's why you can go on the website, you can look at our financials. There's a whole bunch of stuff we had to do to comply. We had to fill out forms with the government. So this isn't just like we decided to do a Kickstarter and we're kickstarting. This is a very sophisticated process we had to go through in order to have the opportunity to invite people into WeFunder to invest. So, all right, I think we're going to stop there. Thank you so much. It's been really exciting, a little bit nervous. This is my first live stream ever, so it didn't go perfectly according to plan with the technology, but I think we'll do it again, and we'll try and get we thought we had things sorted out, but it turns out we didn't quite have them sorted out. But we'll get that fixed, and we'll talk to you again soon. And we'll get the videos posted and hopefully have some new news coming out about the games over the coming weeks. So stay tuned. Thanks.